Hey guys, MCU Collector here with another figure review, and next up is the Amazon exclusive Avengers Infinity War, the Children of Thanos boxed set. This thing is just too big to be able to fit easily within my review station here, so just to kind of gauge at the size of the box, it is insane. One thing I do want to point out though, because Wing or Lose on Instagram showed me this and now I can't unsee it, but Cull Obsidian, not just Cull Obsidian. So a little bit of a typo on the box, which is unfortunate. I'm not sure how, those things happen. It's not the first time we've seen a typo on a Marvel Legends box, so it is what it is. Looking at the box itself, just to kind of gauge size, here is the Cull Obsidian Build-A-Figure, and he does not even come up to half the size of the box. So the box is insane. The artwork and everything on it is absolutely beautiful and stunning. Looking at it, you see Avengers Infinity War, the Children of Thanos. We get some side artwork of all of the characters, but looking at the back, that just looks amazing. I really love the way that looks. It's unfortunate that I'm just going to open it up and end up throwing away the box. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll keep it, but it looks really cool. We got Cull Obsidian there, Ebony Maw in the other corner, Thanos looking pretty menacing. The bio itself reads, the children of Thanos, powerful and vicious warriors, will stop at nothing to harness the powers of the Infinity Stones. So, really cool. Let's just get it opened. In this review, I don't know that I'm going to do a full-on review. I'm probably just going to do some side-by-side comparisons. If I go over articulation, if anything, it's probably just going to be the Cull Obsidian, since he is a new figure, whereas the other ones are just repaints. So let's get to it. Let's open this up and take a look at the figures. Okay, so here is the Thanos figure. We'll start with him. We'll go through one by one each one. We'll talk about each figure and do the comparison with it. I will not be going over articulation on this guy. Cull Obsidian is the only one that I will actually do that with. But so here is Thanos. Let's zoom in and take a closer look at him. Okay, so here is the close-up look at Thanos. So this is the regular head, and you can see he has kind of the burn after effect of using the snap, the Infinity Gauntlet. That's kind of what we're left with on Thanos. This one's just kind of that straight face. I believe this one came in that 3-pack along with the gritty face version of Thanos. So we just kind of have that straight face here. And then we have the interchangeable arm that he comes with, and this one is like the damaged arm, which is pretty cool. It's got some nice details in it. It's textured. It comes out very, very easily as well, so that's not going to be an issue when changing out that arm. But that looks really good. It's done in a darker purple to represent kind of the burn aspect of it, and then it's painted on with some of the brown color to really give it that look. The Infinity Gauntlet itself is really nice, the damaged look to it. Another nice thing is that it's actually removable. So here we have his arm. Too bad you can't do like a cut off arm part from like Endgame. If you wanted to just say, oh, he cut off his hand or something, that could kind of work. It does get a little bit smaller, but it is still basically like the same size of his other arm. So it's not, they didn't like shrink it down in size, it's just damaged. But the Infinity Gauntlet is all damaged and looks really, really good. It's completely redone. I love the bronze color and the wash that's over it to give it that dirty, damaged look, the cracks in it and everything. So that is really cool. And then the Infinity Gauntlet hand portion, same thing. It's kind of got a little bit of damage to it. It's darker in color and some things going, which is really cool. Looking at the other hand, you can see it is a darker color. One thing that's really nice on this one, we get a snap hand, which we did not get previously, which is kind of ridiculous that we wouldn't have gotten a snap hand, right? So that is definitely a nice touch that we get. Yes, it's just another arm with the Infinity Gauntlet, but holy hell, the snapping finger hand. So that is absolutely a nice touch. He also comes with the smiling face Thanos, which this is only now the second way to have gotten this head sculpt in this color, because the very first original Build-A-Figure had this head sculpt, which was the smiling head, but was the terrible skin tone. Right, so we have this one. There was one other way to get this, and that was in the Avengers Infinity War Best of 2017 wave, I think it may have been. The head came with the Thor figure, so that was the only way at the time to get the smiling head sculpt in this skin tone, but now it is released in this box set, so that is a pretty nice touch. So let's see the side-by-sides. Okay, so here are the 3 Thanos figures side by side. Not to mention we did get, you know, the armored version of Thanos, which is different, so we're not going to do the comparison here. But it's now the 3rd Thanos. If you count the best of, it'd be the 4th Thanos figure in this costume or this suit. It's beginning to be way too much, right? So Build-A-Figure, we get it, right? They didn't have the proper information to really give him the most accurate screen look. The skin tone was absolutely atrocious. I'm not sure how they went with that color, other than maybe at the end of Age of Ultron, it may have looked like that. So lighting and things like that may have kind of played into a factor. Then they released that 3-pack in the Marvel, Marvel Studios' first 10 years, and it was an awesome update, really good. Now we get this next one in the box set, which they're all, for the most part, they all use the same mold, obviously, with the exception of this arm, but there are subtle changes. This one became the most movie accurate, but then this one, they made some changes too. So mainly in the boot. So we get a lighter brown boot as opposed to kind of the darker, almost black boot there. The blue is a much brighter blue. The golden stuff is the same, but like here in the trim of it, we get this brown color, whereas this one was more of a black color, and that's going to be the same like in these shoulder pieces here. It's going to be brown versus kind of that black color. And then here on the 10th anniversary one is just all gold, but we get that same brown as part of that belt right in the front. So that's it for the differences. So not a whole lot, but a little bit, some subtle things. And then we get a little bit of subtle change in the skin tone, which I'm not sure how well that's going to come on camera. But this one looks a little bit more purple. This one looks a little bit more kind of toned down. So I would say this purple one, this new one, is going to be the most screen accurate, I would say, in terms of skin tone. So I really like this. But the problem then becomes you're not really going to be able to swap out heads. I mean, you can kind of get away with it. I think it's close enough match that from far away you're not really going to notice. But there definitely is a little bit of a skin tone change. So let's pop off some heads and see how that really looks. Okay, here's the 10th anniversary Thanos body with the new head on there, and you can see the slight difference in the skin tone there. So here is the new box set version with the head from the 10th anniversary, and that one actually looks a little bit better, but I think maybe on my lighting it kind of, you can't really see the difference as much, but for me having it in hand, it is noticeable. But on some pictures you might be able to get away with this one, but this one I think is going to be just a little too noticeable. So now let's move on to Corvus Glaive. Okay, so here is the side-by-side comparison of Corvus Glaive. Now Corvus Glaive probably got the least amount of difference because nothing changed in the sculpt. Proxima Midnight gets a new head, Ebony Maw gets a new head, Thanos gets a new head and arm, Cull Obsidian gets a new body. Corvus Glaive got nothing new. He did get some updated paint apps, and whether or not they're more screen accurate I think is up for debate, because looking back you don't really ever get too good a still shot of Corvus Glaive. He's either moving around a lot or in kind of dark scenery, so it's hard to really tell. But in the 2-pack that came with Loki that was exclusive to Walmart, he was kind of a grayish color with some bronze kind of highlights throughout. And that was kind of it. His head sculpt, his face was kind of a bluish color. The change on this one is we now get a black colorway as opposed to kind of that dark gray. But what I don't like about this Corvus Glaive actually is a lot of that, most of it actually, most of the black parts on him are actually a shiny black, whereas I think a matte black would have been a little bit better, because looking back, you know, it kind of looked, it definitely looked more matte and not really shiny. But that's really the difference. The gold is, I would say, a little bit brighter throughout, but it's all basically the same. And then his face gets a new updated color where he's a little bit more purple, almost looking more like Thanos type of skin tone, whereas the old one definitely looked like an Ebony Maw type skin tone, if you kind of get what I'm saying there. And then his glaive staff is updated a little bit, so the handle is a brighter silver, whereas this one was a little bit darker, and then the gold color itself is brighter. But other than that, it is the exact same, so no difference between them. looking at the back, I don't know that you can really tell that anything's different. If this one looks brighter, it's because of the gray versus the black. So obviously the black is going to make it look darker, but it is the same. But you could tell kind of here on the horn pieces on his head that it's definitely a brighter gold versus this much duller color. But that's really it. Really no other difference. But let's zoom in closer so you can see the difference in those head sculpts. Okay, so here's an up-close look at the Corvus Glaive. So you can see the slight purple tint in this head sculpt versus the slight bluish tint in this head sculpt. But again, it's all the same. We do get that brighter gold, but it does look good. But again, it's really hard to tell which color would be more accurate. I think the face sculpt would be a little bit more accurate, but I'm almost thinking that this actual of the color of the figure would be a little bit more accurate to the film, and it's not something where you would be able to just swap the heads because you got black versus the gray. But that does look really good. And then the staff color, looking at the difference in the gold, you could see there. So more of a bronze, I would say more of a gold. But the sculpt, everything 100% the same. But you guys let me know down in the comments below, which one do you think is better and more screen accurate? Okay, so here is Proxima Midnight, the original release in that first Thanos Build-A-Figure wave with this new updated one. And this new updated one is the more screen accurate, whereas this Proxima Midnight definitely suffered from some of that early concept art, mainly in the head sculpt, but, you know, definitely some in the color. This one looks more to the comics versus the movies, whereas this one, we get kind of those muted colors. So, like, instead of the white, we get this gray color because she really was kind of the darker tone. And then instead of the flashy gold, she has kind of a nice silver color, which actually looks really good. We'll take a closer look at that here shortly. She comes with her sword because she actually used the sword in that final battle in Wakanda. You know how she kind of brushed it up against that force field and everything, and then when she fought Okoye and Black Widow, she was fighting with the sword. The staff that she has actually comes updated, so instead of being all gold, it is all black with a little bit of blue energy right down there, and then kind of at the tips there. I guess this would be a little bit more accurate. I don't really remember the blue color, but maybe that's just my memory being bad. It's pretty pliable, so you know there is going to be some warping, like how mine is warped right here. See how they kind of come together. But definitely a nicer look. First, when I looked at these a little bit closer, I'm thinking, well, actually, you know what? The head sculpt's actually the same. I've been saying that it's a new head sculpt. It's a new head sculpt. It is, in fact, a new head sculpt, but it is very similar. But there are some changes, some key changes in there, and I'll show you guys that. We'll zoom in right now so you can see. Okay, so there's our up-close look at the two Proxima Midnight heads. So the horns are very similar. So if anything, maybe this head sculpt is a slight retooling. You know, they may have made some changes. It's hard to really tell when you have like the darker colors over some new lighter colors. So they fixed her skin tone, which was kind of a big one. They gave it a way more accurate look. One of the things that I thought was odd is that this was a movie figure at a time where all movie figures were getting the digital face print, and this one never even got that. We do get that one. We do get the digital face print on this new one, of course. She has a much darker blue hair. The hair sculpt is the exact same. There's no change to it, just that much darker look. We get this awesome like metallic bluish color in her forehead in there that just looks really, really nice. And it goes into the color of the horns. That just looks really good. The horns are for the most part the same shape. See, the horns almost tricked me into thinking that it was the same exact head sculpt, just, you know, different paint. But the big tell is the cheekbones. So you can see right there you have the creases of her face, whereas the previous one does not have that. So that's how you could tell it is a new head sculpt, so or retooled, because you know the horns are very, very similar. They may be the same. If anything, this one gets a little bit more rounded, but it is a new head sculpt, same hair. So that is the key difference, though, is just kind of the creases in her face along her cheekbones. That's how you can tell. One of the cool things in looking at the armor, you know, when we get that silver color instead of the gold, one of the things that I noticed, and it's pretty subtle, so you kind of have to really look for it, and I'm not sure how well it's going to come in to camera here based on how the kind of the light's going to shine off of it, but there's like a digital print type thing to show kind of some little areas on there. So it's these little details, like right there, these little details that are added on there that you would almost hardly even notice, but are there. So we get some in the forearm Not sure that you can really tell, but it's in there to kind of show either some kind of scuffs or a little bit of damage to it, but it's a nice little added detail. You can really see the one on the shoulder there. And then looking at the silver on the leg, we don't get any of that on there, but that's a huge difference compared to the gold that we got before. So much improved. You guys can let me know down in the comments if you prefer the colorway of this one compared to this one. Swapping the heads will look kind of funny because the skin tones aren't really going to match, but you guys let me know down in the comments below which one do you like more. Here is the sword that she comes with. Not a whole lot going on with it. It's just done black handle hilt, and then the blade is just done in a gray color. The sculpt of it is nice. You can see the line work and the details. That looks pretty good, but pretty basic. But I really do like that she actually gets to come with it this time. Okay, so next is Ebony Maw. Now, I didn't think that we needed an updated Ebony Maw, but looking back at some scenes, there are some updates to this figure that would be more screen accurate, but the color itself isn't quite screen accurate, although the skin tone and the head sculpt are much better. The head sculpt is actually the same, we just get a new hairpiece on the back of his head, which I will show you guys zoomed in. So a couple of things just to note while we have the side-by-side comparisons here. The color, the dark black color, I would say is not really accurate. I would say this suit overall is the more accurate, but there are some added details into this figure that would be nice if this figure had that. So there's kind of those things. So right here on the front of his little skirt piece, his tunic, whatever the hell it is, you see the outline that comes up there. We don't get the outline on the inside on this original release that was part of the armored Thanos Build-A-Figure wave, I think it was. So that's what's lacking here. It did have some trim. We had a little bit darker gray trim like right here on the outside, but it should come on the inside. The trim color was very noticeable in it, so I would say this portion is going to be more accurate. It's just the black pants versus the dark gray pants, I would say, aren't as accurate, but the trim and the little details and stuff definitely are a little bit more accurate to Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, because since it is basically the exact same, so you can just kind of see some of the difference there, that darker look to it. Basically the same, just kind of the swapped colors. But we do get like this trim here on the inside, whereas we didn't get that on the previous one. But let's zoom in on the head sculpt, see that change. Whoa, the hair. Okay, so taking a closer look, you can see the skin tone really changed to be more gray than that blue tint that we got before. So that is one of the big changes in the skin tone. Looking at the side of the head, you can see it is the same exact head sculpt, but we got very little hair on the previous one, whereas we get much more hair on this new one, and it is absolutely more screen accurate. It looks so much better. Like this guy looks really ugly now that I'm looking at it, and I think this again would be a little bit more comic accurate, you know, based on early concept art of what Marvel would have provided Hasbro for it. So it just looks kind of funny, especially because you kind of have this line here, which would have been perfect had the hair gone all the way over, like it does on this one. So it's a much needed improvement. Just that little bit, like looking at it straight on, right, there's not a whole lot. You could just see it looks a little bit wider because you could see the hair, and then looking at the hair coming down off the side just makes it look so much better. But again, it is the same head sculpt. They did not make any changes to the head sculpt, just that added hair, and I like it a whole lot. But you guys let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on this figure overall, since you know, there's little changes. I don't like the darker look to it, but I do like the added paint details, and the suit itself, as subtle as they are, I do think it is much more accurate to the movie. But you guys let me know down in the comments below which one you like more. And then, of course, you know, were all these changes enough to get you to get this box set? If you're looking for that Cull Obsidian alone, then yes, it absolutely is, which we will take a look at right now. It's just a little crazy to think how the Cull Obsidian figure was awesome. It just was not even close to the movie. It's very comic inspired look to it, which is, you know, a lot of the characters should be. So they had to make some changes to it. So it's pretty crazy that as a second wave, they still didn't have enough time to have the most accurate look from Marvel. So it's just kind of crazy to think. The Build-A-Figure is awesome. The size is great. So it's nice to know that the new one, the height is the same, so we don't have to worry about that. But it's just the movie accuracy is just amazing to look at. So really awesome figure. Build a figure on its own to an even better figure now that it is screen accurate. So there's some cool things. We will go over this guy's articulation, but looking at it, there are some things that are reused. So they didn't go all crazy. I mean, well, they did go all crazy, but the left arm is the same. The right arm it has some slight retooling. The hands are the same. Well, the left hand is the same. The right hand is actually different, which is weird. And it looks like the head sculpt is the same. Other than that, it's new. So what is that, like 85% or 75%, 90%? But it is not 100% new, but there are some updated changes to it, and I really, really like it. So let's take a closer look at those changes as we zoom in onto Cull Obsidian. Okay, so some of the key changes here, on the original Build-A-Figure left arm, he has this armor plate here that's like glued onto the arm. So they had to do some retooling to adjust that on this one. So the arm itself is the same, it's just a retooling to get rid of that armor plate. And then we actually get some added paint details onto the hand, which is a really nice touch. So you get a little of this black shading on his knuckles and then on the back of his hand, whereas the original Build-A-Figure didn't have that. Usually, you know, we see less paint details and that kind of thing, but we actually got added paint details there. Looking at the other arm, we do get some added paint details as well. So this one had some heavy black shading on his forearm. It's much lighter on the new one, and then we actually get it on the bicep, whereas we did not get it on the bicep before at all. We get it on the back of the bicep as well. But looking at the hand, and then this one is actually kind of weird when looking at it. As I try to adjust so you guys could get a really good look at what's going on. So we don't have that armor plate. So you'll notice right away, right, the Build-A-Figure has that silver armor kind of plated piece there on the back of the hand. The new one, you could see that same shape, but it's just in the color of the skin tone. Now, I was thinking, okay, so that's weird. They just, you know, put it as part of the skin tone. You know, it's kind of odd. But what I'm noticing is that this silver plated one is actually like glued onto the hand, whereas this one's part of the sculpt. So they did the retooling, but they kept that design on the hand, but the right hand doesn't have that, so the left now does. So it's kind of weird, because if it was a separate piece, just don't include that piece and retool it. Why put that as why retool it as part of the sculpt and paint it? So that was definitely an odd choice. Okay, so looking at Cull Obsidian's head sculpt, it is the same head sculpt, but it actually looks like there's less details in the head sculpt for a couple of different reasons. Whereas the skin tone of the previous one had all kinds of different colors throughout his head sculpt. Notice the horns are the same color as his skin, whereas the new one was updated to reflect the horns of a different color, and then the skin tone itself doesn't have as much of that same kind of shading on it, which, you know, I wouldn't say is wrong. It does look pretty good, but it does look like it has less paint apps to it. The eyes are a little bit more noticeable on this new one. It uses that digital print for kind of that yellowing of the horns there. So that is pretty cool, as well as this lighter shade of skin tone kind of through the front portion of his face. So that is all done quite nicely, but it is in fact the same head sculpt. So now let's zoom out for Cull Obsidian's articulation. Okay, so Cull Obsidian, he popped the head right off, so he can't look down a whole lot. So it kind of goes there. Looking up, he can look up actually quite a bit, so that is pretty cool. You get the full rotation going on in there, and you got some head pivot that you're able to do. The shoulder only goes out that far. It's really not going to move a whole lot because you got these large portions there, so you just can't get it to hinge up, unfortunately. You get a full rotation in there, of course, so that is cool. You got that upper bicep swivel in there. You get a single jointed elbow, which gives you that much bend, so not a whole lot going on in there. Wrists swivel, and they do have that vertical hinge on his right. You have that horizontal, on the left, you have the horizontal standard hinge on the left. You're not going to get that arm to really go out at all either, because you got this armor piece. Not that it's a separate piece, so it'll move with the arm, but you just can't get that arm to go out a whole lot. You can't get a full rotation in the way they designed it, because they didn't have it as this same piece here. So that is kind of nice. We get a nice gold color on there, and is rubber material, so it can kind of move around, but it is glued on there, so be aware of that. We have a waist swivel in there, so that is pretty cool. We also have a diaphragm joint, so he can pivot to the side that much. He could pivot to his other side that much. Going back is hardly anything at all. Coming forward a little bit, but really not a whole lot. You can do the splits that much, which is cool. Great. He can kick forward that high, which is actually really good. You have an upper thigh cut there. You get a double jointed knee like so, and that's kind of a huge hinge there. There is no boot swivel or calf swivel, unfortunately. He has a foot that hinges down only slightly, because if you look at the design of the boot, that heel is going to hit right there. So there's no hinging down. You hinge up very little. You have great pivot though, and peg holes at the bottom of the feet. And then notice the feet are actually quite thin. So there is his articulation, which is actually pretty darn good. But man, the figure just looks really good overall. Some of the details that we didn't really look at, we get some nice gold paints in there, a little bit of that reddish orange color, gold, blue, some silvers in there. So it's just really nice. You know, it's super late to get this updated figure, and it sucks that we have to get this $120 box set to get a movie accurate Cull Obsidian. But dare I say that it's worth it, because this figure is just absolutely amazing looking? Yeah, I think so, but I think you have to be a real movie collector to truly appreciate it. Now, I know a lot of you guys were excited when this was announced, and a lot of you guys weren't excited because you're getting the same damn figure over and over and over again. I get it. It's definitely a problem with the Thanos to get a third one, but the updates are just insane, right? Proxima Midnight looks amazing. That little bit of hair on Ebony Maw changes everything. He looks a little less like Squidward than the other one. Corvus Glaive, I could have done without, though, to be honest with you. I'm getting a new one. I do like the update that they did to his skin tone and the face, but you know, And then Thanos, of course, because this gauntlet hand, that the whole burn thing and everything like that is really nice. But the damn snapping finger hand, like, finally, come on. It's been how many Thanos figures? How many? You know, you could have done it with the armored one or something to throw it in there. So now we actually finally have that snapping finger, and that is just really, really cool. One thing I didn't try, and I probably should have tried this earlier, is if I pop that hand off, I wonder if you can put it onto the armored Thanos hand, and if it'll really match the gauntlet piece. And look at that, it does. That looks really good. I like that. But you guys let me know down in the comments below. $120 for this figure, is that worth it to you guys to get these newest movie accurate looks to it? I know some of you guys may not have even finished, you know, that Loki Corvus Glaive 2-pack that was exclusive to Walmart could have been very difficult to find in store, and I know it was at sometimes, because, you know, Walmart exclusives are the absolute worst. The Proxima Midnight, I think a lot of people passed because it just wasn't that great looking of a figure. You know, a female figure with double jointed elbows is always nice. Ebony Maw, I think a lot of people picked up, you know, especially since it was in a standard wave by itself and not like in a 2-pack or anything like that. The Corvus Glaive one was probably the most difficult. You know, we just had that Loki figure kind of in the Thor Ragnarok Gladiator Hulk Build-A-Figure release. It's a crappy figure. I don't care for it at all. That black was a nice touch, though. But there is the Black Order, the Children of Thanos, which is absolutely amazing. Now, the other highlight to this pack, which I haven't talked about yet, is the Cull Obsidian axe weapon piece. Look at how big this damn thing is. I mean, look at the size of him. The width is like the same width of Cull Obsidian himself. I didn't bring out the previous Build-A-Figures hammer thing, mallet, whatever, hunk of plastic, because who cares about that one? I have it buried away somewhere, and it's absolute trash. But look at this thing. This thing is incredible. The sculpted detail on it is absolutely insane. It's got some weight to it. I know a lot of people 3D printed their own, and I think Hasbro saw that and was like, man, we got to do something about it. We gotta call them on it and say, you know what, we can do it too. It sucks that, you know, it's after the fact, but this thing looks absolutely amazing, just the details in it. But there's zero paint on this guy. It is just a hunk of black plastic. It's a great looking hunk of plastic, but it is still a hunk of plastic with no added paint details. But the sculpt of it itself more than makes up for it and just looks absolutely incredible. You guys let me know down in the comments below what you think of this. Do you have a 3D printed version? How would you say this compares to that? But yeah, that is awesome. So there is the Children of Thanos box set, Amazon exclusive. Link in the video description below to put in an order if maybe I changed your mind. Hopefully I did. Hopefully you didn't pass on it. If you're a movie collector, I think it's a must because of that Cull Obsidian alone. You know, the other added things are definitely a nice touch. Are they 100% necessary? No, but I think the movie accurate body and suit to Cull Obsidian absolutely was necessary in my opinion. But you guys let me know down in the comments below. If you guys like this video, please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching. Snap.